Hi, I'm Joni Patry, and welcome to my YouTube channel. Well, today I want to talk about the third week in January. So I'm going to be talking about January 15th through the 21st. And we have got a lot of ground to cover in this third week. So what I'm doing, I want to remind everyone that maybe hasn't been here before, I am looking at each day of this week, what is going on astrologically in the sky. And don't forget, I'm a sidereal Vedic astrologer, so these are different placements than the Western tropical. But why do I do this? I'm telling you, it is more specific and accurate. It is the true placements of where the planets are astronomically. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to be focusing everything through the moon. The moon is the public, the moon is the emotion, and it is the planet that travels the swiftest. So how all the other planets are relative to the moon will depict what we're all feeling out there globally. Now, if you want to know about how it affects you personally with your own personal chart, you can get my galactic planner. Go to galacticplanner.com, and here you will get your individual birth chart and all of these transits plugged into your birth chart, and it will give you a reading every day delivered into your phone where you can read it every day. You don't need to know astrology for the planner. It is in plain English what it means for you each and every day. Try it out. You're going to love it. galacticplanner.com. And don't forget, if you go to my website, sign up for my free newsletter, which is go to galacticcenter.org, and you will get all my predictions delivered free every week to your email address. So let's get going with January 15th through the 21st. So I am looking at January 15th, which is a Wednesday, and I am talking about Central Standard Time, so adjust your time zones to this. But this entire day, the moon will be in Cancer. And while it's here in Cancer, it's already crossed over Mars, which is intense. That was the last few days. But today, it's on the other side of Mars, but still they're together. And this makes emotions on high alert. And the other thing is, from the moon, still here in Cancer, we have Jupiter in the 11th house from the moon. This means coming together with more friends, meeting new people, group activity. You will be more aligned with your friends this day. And looking at, still we have the sun and the moon opposed each other, and this brings things to light. There's a bright moon still in the sky. But it is now on the waning phase. So it's a bright moon, but it is waning. It's not waxing anymore, which means it's decreasing in light. The Saturn-Venus being in the 8th house from the moon, this is like a time of deep introspection, psychological research on yourself. What are you feeling and why are you feeling this way? This will give you answers. So Rahu and Neptune being in the 9th house from the moon, if your father's still around, make sure you know what's going on. Neptune could mean there's something you don't see. Okay? Now, going to where the moon is, its nakshatra is called Aslesha. And Aslesha is actually the snake. Its symbol is a snake, and many times this just means the snake has many, many meanings, as you well know. But I always refer to the meaning of healing because the snake is part of the medical symbol for healing. So it does deal with healing, and it does deal with focus. And Aslesha is a nakshatra that is very good for business. So it's a good day for business. And because, as I said, it deals with healing, Mercury actually goes to the 6th house from the moon. And that actually means it is a day that you can start really taking into account your eating, your exercise, your daily habits to correct them and make yourself better during this time. So January 15th is a day of progress and moving forward. Now I'm looking at January 16th. This is a Thursday, Central Standard Time. The moon is in Leo, and it is in the nakshatra called Magha. And Magha is affiliated with, well, its symbol is a throne, so affiliated with kings. As a matter of fact, within this nakshatra sits the fixed star Regulus, which is the star of kingship, kings, leaders. It is the star that is the heart of the lion, and it deals with warmth and loyalty. This is some of the warmth and good qualities of Leo. So with this moon in Leo, we actually have Saturn and Venus go to the 7th house from the moon. So this is a good time for you to come together with partners. I mean, it's not going to be the warmest time because we do have Saturn there, 7th, but it is a time that you can work things out in partnerships, that you'll get a lot done. This is a good day for working together with business partners or working things out with your partner in love relationships. And another thing is, this day we have Jupiter in the 10th house from the moon. This is fantastic for business and work. You can approach your boss and you can get what you want. It's a good time to plan business meetings as well. They will be very, very productive. And if you have your own business, it's time to expand during this day. You will see things clearly. The moon in Leo is great for this. And when the moon's in Leo, you will feel more like you're in a leadership position. You can move forward and be a leader and not listen to what other people tell you to do. Now, with K2 being in the 2nd from the moon, be aware that family matters may be a little in disarray. People aren't coming together or listening. And Mars is in the 12th house from the moon. And many, many times when Mars is in the 12th house, it means secret enemies. And generally what that equates to is people talking behind your back. And many times when Mars is in the 12th, it means it's aspecting the 6th house of co-workers, people you work with, or employees. They are not on the up and up, and they could be doing things behind your back. Plus, be careful. Make sure your house is locked and protected. Those are other things that this could deal with. And looking at Rahu, Rahu goes to the 8th house. Money could come to you actually unexpectedly through other people in some way. But this is a transit that happens quite often, and just be aware that where your money is per se as well. And looking at Mercury being in the 5th house, it is a day of creativity. So you're highly creative today, especially with new ideas with business. So now I'm looking at Friday, January 17th, and of course this is Central Standard Time. And we have the moon in Leo. And it is in one of my favorite nakshatras, another one of my favorite nakshatras, Purva Falguni. This is actually my moon nakshatra. Purva Falguni can deal with social events. People with this moon are very social. They like to be out with people. So it could be a time of being in social events with celebrations. Jupiter's in the 10th house from the moon. So this definitely deals with good things going on in business and work. Approaching your boss for what you need or what you want. This is a good day for this. Now, Mars is in the 12th house, so you must be aware there could be some issues or problems around jealousy in the workplace. And I say that because people talk behind your back when Mars is in the 12th. And looking at where Venus and Saturn are, still this is an excellent day to come together in partnership. Get things worked out even if it's a business partner or if it's a marriage partner. Get things worked out. Venus is very strong, 7th from the moon. As a matter of fact, it's exactly 7th from the moon. This is a lovely day, but Saturn makes it a little bit of a serious tone. K2 in the 2nd from the moon, be aware that people in the family unit, are not being cooperative, and it may affect financial matters in the family. And another thing that's going on is Mercury is in the 5th house from the moon. So it is a great day for creative talent coming out. This is a Friday. Friday is ruled by Venus. Go out on dates. Go out and approach people. Even though Mars is in the 12th, don't stay out too late. But looking at this is a lovely day. I'm looking at around 2:30 in the afternoon, and we have the moon and Venus exactly opposed at 20 degrees of Leo and 20 degrees of Aquarius. Beautiful for relationships, dating, parties, and Mercury being at 19, almost 20 degrees, trining the moon. Self-expression, creativity comes easy on this day. Now I'm looking at January 18th, and it's a Saturday, Central Standard Time. The moon is aligning with K2 in Virgo. So the moon is in Virgo. And when it comes together with K2, there's sort of like this out-of-body experience, out-of-body feeling or sensation. Things are very different today. You don't feel connected with the world. Don't be overly critical of others, though, today, because when the moon goes into Virgo, we have that tendency to be more critical, more scrutinizing, paying probably too much attention to detail. I mean, it's important to pay attention to detail, but let's look at the big picture too. But with K2, with the moon, people are not altogether there. They're kind of out of body. But all at the same time, the moon is in the nakshatra today called Uttara Falguni. And this is a nakshatra that deals with relationships. Although with the moon being tied up with K2, relationships may be at odds. Why? Because we have Rahu Neptune in the 7th house from this moon. And that means confusion, not seeing things clearly in a relationship, as well as maybe your partner, business or love relationship, could not be being truthful to you. Neptune's deception. Neptune can be lying. So be aware. This is not only Neptune opposing the moon, and it's pretty much dead on opposed the moon at this time around 2:30. But Central Standard Time. But let me remind you, Rahu is there, which intensifies and makes relationships very difficult. It's funny though, because I have found that Neptune can be very deceptive and Rahu will expand whatever it's next to. So great deception in relationships. You must be careful. If you feel somebody's not being honest with you, you're probably right, but just feel it out for this day. The Venus, Saturn go to the 6th house, which can be good around the workplace, but it's still, this is, watch your health and watch, if you have any pets, watch them, make sure they're in a good place, because I noticed that today, Venus is exactly conjunct Saturn to the minute. So this puts another strain on relationships. Saturn is not the most loving of all the planets. It can be cold, detached, and not only that, Venus and Saturn are conjunct in Aquarius, which is one of the more detached signs. It's ruled by Saturn. And I'm looking at Mars being in the 11th house from the moon. And today Mars sits at 0 degrees of Cancer. It's getting ready to go into Gemini. So it's a little unstable. And Mars is opposed the sun. And yeah, the Sun-Mars opposition, all this week, it's been growing and building that there's pressure and tension around world leaders. This is getting really close to Inauguration Day. Things are really, really getting heated up at this time. And come to think of it, that Mars being 0 degrees sits on two of the people that are prominent in the next government to come. Donald Trump has his Saturn there, and Robert Kennedy Jr. has his K2 there. So something's up. We may not see it, but something is definitely up concerning the leadership and what's going on in politics in the United States and probably around the world. So be aware of what is happening. This is kind of a critical day. This is Saturday. We're going to see where it takes us, but I don't particularly like the moon being with K2 because it means that there's something that we can't see that's going on that will affect us all on an emotional level. Now I'm looking at January 19th, and this is a Sunday, Central Standard Time, and Jupiter is in the 9th house from the moon. Very fortunate because this can deal with bringing out something more spiritual, something that has more meaning, something that pertains to the law but spirituality. Maybe laws are being transformed and changed, and we know they are in the United States for sure. Now the moon has already crossed over K2, which means, emotionally things are not on the up and up. Things are kind of weird and people feel like, escaping the world on this day. But the moon today sits in the nakshatra called Hasta. Hasta's ruled by the moon, and Hasta represents the hand, and it deals with particularly grasping onto and holding ideas. So this is an intense moon, very emotional with it, with K2. And by the way, with Jupiter being in the 9th house from this moon K2, it can be a day for spiritual discovery and reading spiritual texts, but getting more connected with your soul and your spirit. Okay, so we do have Venus is finally moved away from Saturn somewhat, which is better than the exact planetary war they had yesterday. But the sun is getting closer and closer to Pluto. And of course, this is the day before inauguration. I find it so fascinating that Inauguration Day always occurs with the sun being in Capricorn, which deals with government. And in the United States chart that I use, Pluto is in Capricorn, and therefore the sun is going to conjunct the Pluto in the United States chart. But Pluto is conjunct the sun in the sky too, because the United States is having a Pluto return. Pluto takes about, give or take a year or so, but 244 years. That's how old the Constitution of the United States, the Declaration of Independence is for the United States. 45 years old. Pluto's return. The sun is on it. This is huge. What is about to happen with the United States. This is the biggest transformation ever. Whether you like Donald Trump or not, I always say he's a catalyst for change. Now that doesn't always mean this is greatly positive. It means that it's extremely divisive and extremely huge transformational, big change is happening in the world. And for the United States, because of this Pluto energy in the sun, it's got to be. So we've got to go with it. Everything happens for a reason. And ultimately, I believe the reason is good. We maybe sometimes can't see it at the time, but later on, we'll look back and go, now I understand why Because hindsight's always 20/20, right? We'll see it. It's all changing right now. And so let us move forward to the next day. Now I'm looking at January 20th. This is Inauguration Day. It's a Monday at 12 noon. Donald Trump should be sworn in as the President of the United States, but there is a lot going on behind the scenes because I mentioned that Mars is at 0 degrees of Cancer, which affects his chart in his 12th house, things behind the scenes, yes, and Robert Kennedy Jr. Things are going on between the both of them, and I bet if I pulled up the charts for all of the new cabinet members, there'd be something going on in their chart. This is a huge shift of energy, and something's up that's happening. I gotta say beneath or behind the scenes, because it's happening in Trump's chart in the 12th house, which means behind the scenes. But looking at this day, we have the sun almost exactly conjunct Pluto today and tomorrow, which is a day of transformational change. For what? The sun is power. The sun is leadership. And that is what's coming down and happening. The moon sits in the nakshatra Chitra, and it is still in Virgo. It's still in Virgo this whole day. I find that very interesting when I relate back to the chart for the United States that I use, which is the signing of the Declaration of Independence, because that means the moon in Virgo is going to be in the 10th house of the United States chart. Virgo is the 10th house in that chart, and the moon is going to conjunct Saturn in that chart, which means this is a serious year for change. Now, the moon will be in latter degrees of Virgo in the nakshatra Chitra, and Chitra is the bright shining star. And it also means that the moon will be moving over this day, probably by the evening. The fixed star that is the most auspicious fixed star in the heavens is called Spica. And Spica deals with writing and literary genius. And it's also a star that means things will change. There will be it's almost like things happen really quickly with this star. It's ruled by Mars, but it deals with, Chitra is ruled by Mars, but Spica, it is the most auspicious. And it deals with overnight sensations. So things are going to be changing quite rapidly in Washington, D.C., but also really this is going to reverberate around the world, the changes that are being set into motion on this day. Yes, on this day. So I see so much happening. Jupiter is in the 9th house from the moon. New laws. It's time. It's good for travel. New laws. Big changes that are going to happen in governments. And even Mercury being in the 4th house from the moon. This can deal with something with home and family. Things are changing, but it's a positive. People are coming together and learning more. Mercury in the 4th from the moon, people are learning more. They're staying home. They're getting things done out of their home base. This is fantastic. So let us move on to January 21st. This will complete the last day of the 3rd week that I'm looking at, which is a Tuesday. Mars will have reverted back into the sign of Gemini today. And in the United States chart I keep talking about, there's 4 planets in Gemini. So while Mars is in Gemini, between now and April 2nd, remember it's retrograde, so it's going backwards in the sign of Gemini. And this means it's going to bring up a lot of things concerning communications, travel, and there's going to be some massive shifts of energy in the U.S. And I've seen it. This also affects China. It affects many countries, Israel, that I've looked at. This placement in Gemini opens the door to mass communications. Things we didn't know about before, we will. As Mars from this day forward it actually probably entered into Gemini late on January 20th, but it's here in Gemini to stay till about April 2nd. February, we got some things to worry about. I'll talk about that next month, day in to day out. But looking at this, the moon now is in Libra, and it is in the nakshatra called Swati. Libra, with this, we have got Mercury's in the 3rd house, so a lot of communications, things are coming up. Mars is nearing the opposition of Mercury. Therefore, people, when they communicate, aren't very nice. They have a tone of anger and hostility behind it because Mars is in Mercury's sign and it's aspecting Mercury fully. So things are getting heated up again. The Venus-Saturn will be in the 5th house, though. You know, when it comes to opening your heart and relationships, things are getting better. But I still don't like Venus and Saturn together in the detached sign of Aquarius when it comes to love and romance. And that's practically this whole month that this is in effect. So, looking at Rahu being in the 6th house, it is a time to watch your health. You know, take your vitamins, get your rest, because Rahu Neptune can represent disease when it's in the 6th from the moon. So there might be an uptick in viruses and things going on at this time. And be aware, there's things that are brewing behind the scenes that we can't see with Ketu behind the moon in the 12th house from the moon. But Mars does sit in the 9th house, so a lot of progress and energy and action in governmental affairs will kick in by January 21st. So that concludes our 3rd week in January. Remember, if you want to learn Vedic astrology, if this has inspired you in any way, go to my university website. We have got semester 1 about to begin, 1st week in February. So go to universityofvedicastrology.com and become my student. Thank you.